Hello, Suzanne Henwood here from Braining for Success. I am a passionate advocate against bullying in schools, bullying in the workplace. So many of my clients have experienced bullying and they have, just horrible stories to tell and real issues with their health and their well-being. And more often than not, the targets of bullying, not only are they targeted initially, but they're the ones who have to leave their workplace, grieve the loss of a job that they loved, maybe have worked really hard to build up a reputation in. And then just because of the behavior of a bully, they end up having to leave and walk away when they have done nothing wrong. In fact, if you look at Dr. Gary Namie's work, you might be surprised at who targets are. They're the people who are popular and good at their job. They're well liked. It's almost that tall poppy syndrome that we see time and time again too often in New Zealand. New Zealand is the second worst in the OECD for bullying in the workplace. And that is a shocking statistic. When are we going to say that enough is enough? When are we going to say that we're not going to tolerate bullying in the way that it happens right now? Just this morning, I watched a news reel around MB and how they are now also facing accusations of bullying in their very place where we would hope they're standing up for targets. And yet we know none of the cases that have gone to them have been upheld and action taken against the bullies. There was an interesting word within that reel that really stood out for me, and it was acceptable and not acceptable. In my mind, in my model of the world, bullying is never acceptable. If someone has a bad day and shouts at you, that's not bullying. If someone is performance managing you, that's not bullying. There are very clear guidelines and outlines in our WorkSafe document. For example, in New Zealand, there's a whole list of activities that can be considered bullying. So it's very clear. For me, if there's a tick against any of those, it's unacceptable. For us not to be making that clear in the workplace, for us not to be standing up with targets and saying, I saw what happened to you and it's not okay. It's just a really sad place for us to be in workplaces in New Zealand and around the world at the moment. And so on this Pink Shirt Day, what will you do? What will you do to have a voice, to stand up, to be an upstander, not just on Friday, but every day moving forward? Will you be a flying monkey that joins in and helps the attack? Will you be a quiet observer that stands by and lets that bullying happen without any challenge? And I know that it can be difficult to stand up and have a voice because you make yourself a target as well. And once you are a target, if you raise an issue, a complaint, expect more poor behavior from many places. You might find that the bully is protected, promoted, upheld. You might find that there's a counter complaint suddenly, miraculously appears out of nowhere against you as the target. Make sure you delve into that if that happens to you. Ask for the paperwork, ask for the official complaint that's come in, ask for the facts, the specific situation, the time, and why has it not been dealt with before now, even if there was an event? Why are they waiting until you raise an issue of bullying to bring this before you? It's merely to deflect from the situation. Be aware there are the behaviors that we see time and time again, and they are shockingly awful. So it's not easy to stand up. But the alternative is to allow the harm that's happening to people to continue, is to allow the bullying to be acceptable in the workplace. If I came to work one day and I smashed your finger deliberately in a door frame and broke it, is that acceptable? What about if I tripped you down some stairs and you broke an ankle? Is that acceptable? There's no acceptable to that sort of violence and aggression. And yet, because the damage is done in here at heart level, in the gut level sense of identity, and in the head and the anxiety and the stories we start to tell ourselves and doubt ourselves, somehow, because it's not so visible, we say it's acceptable. Really? And if we're honest, it's not as invisible as we think it is. We've seen people change. We've seen the smile go off their face. We've seen them struggle. We've seen them get ill health issues arising. We've seen them lose their sense of self. Bullying is not a one-off event. We all have bad days. Bullying is deliberate and repeated, and it's happening very, very often in our schools and in our workplaces, and it is causing huge detriment to health and well-being, and it's even costing lives. Are you going to tolerate that? Are you going to debate how much of that is acceptable? Or are you going to put a firm line in the sand, be an upstander, and say it's not okay, it's never okay, and I will never stand by and see it and do nothing? Challenging message this year. I hope you will join in. I hope you will get your pink t-shirt, get involved. And if you know someone who is a target, who has been targeted, go up and let them know you've seen that behavior and you think it's not okay, and you're going to stand beside them. You might just save a life. Thanks for listening.